You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and the interview subject I have coming up for you is the most excellent Fiona Horne from the Sydney outfit Def FX. The reason for the conversation is to promote Def FX's run of shows across the east coast of Australia in June, and I'll read out some dates. On the 21st, they're playing in Newcastle. The 27th, they're playing in Sydney. Friday the 28th, Melbourne, or Belgrave. I suppose that's a suburb of Melbourne, I hope. Anyway. And finally, in the Valley here in Brisbane, they're playing at the Woolly Mammoth on Saturday the 29th. So the other reason for the conversation I thought I'd bring it up with her was she was also touring Australia. We've got some dates anyway. If she's not going all around Australia, she's got some dates in Australia because she doesn't live here anymore, where she's going to be talking about her studies in the subject of witchcraft. So that will be really interesting. Even if you've got a slight interest in that, Fiona is an authority on the subject, it must be said, and she can share her wealth of wisdom and knowledge. Now, just a heads up, at about the 2-minute mark of the conversation, the call drops out, but we get it back and going fairly quickly again, so you'll notice there's a bit of a crackly bit and it drops out and then we cut back in. That's all that happened there, as we do explain through the conversation. But anyway, I thought I'd bring it up before you listened into it. So without further ado, here she is, Fiona Horne. Fiona, Andy Mackay-Smith calling for our chat. How are you going?
Oh, good. Hey, good. I'm glad it's you. It came up unknown, so I wasn't sure if it was you. I'm glad it is.
Oh, right.
I'm good, Andrew. What's going on?
Look, I actually just chatted to Jeff Becerra from Possessed. Those guys have got back together this morning. So I've got to tell you, it's a day for, if you don't mind me saying, for nostalgia in my youth. I listened to Def FX a lot when I was growing up, and I saw you a heap of times. The last time I saw you was actually 1996 when you supported the Smashing Pumpkins. It's that long ago. It was 23 years ago.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
That was a great run of shows too. It was a great time.
I actually think, to be honest with you, you guys were better than the Smashing Pumpkins. And I know Billy had some shit that he was going through back in those days, with the drummer and the keyboardist passing, not the drummer passing away, but the keyboarder passing away, and he wasn't in the best of headspace,
Yeah, Billy and I are, we've stayed in touch over all these years, and there was interesting times back then for him. I'm very flattered that you thought we were better than them. I'll never tell him that, though, because he'd be upset. But he's a fucking genius, he's a legend, and that's I've been lucky to sit in on a bunch of recordings they've done since those days, and flattered that he even thanked me on one of their albums.
There you go.
I guess about 8 years ago now, he thanked me, and I just definitely inspired and tons of respect for him. But those memories of getting to do shows like that and just getting to be in music in the 90s, I think we all have but I was in music in the 80s too. The Mothers was my all-girl punk group I put together, and Sister Sludge, we were doing that in the late 80s, but there was great music around then. But I just think the 90s was fucking awesome, and I just feel grateful and lucky that was my defining era, and to get to continue.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. It just sort of went crackly and cut out.
Yeah, just crackly and cut out. No, I was just going to say, I was just saying, I can't even remember what I was saying, but just about being able to play now,
Yeah, well, I think
celebrate
the 90s.
that era of music is just I think the 90s have earned its own legendary status that it has now, because it was bloody good music then.
Yeah, it was, and I've spoken to heaps of guys from back in those days. Some you appeared on stages, not necessarily, at festival stages with Regurgitator, Scream Feeder, these sorts of bands, and I wouldn't even call it nostalgia, because some of us never stopped listening. We just kept on listening. It's just the bands now have got the ability to perform again.
That's so interesting you say that. No one else has said that, and yet it's very, very true, and it really reflects a lot of the communications I get through social media. I mean, that's where we're blessed now with good old internet, now that we have it. We didn't back in the 90s, barely. And frickin' social media, it's like it allows us to connect with people one-on-one, and people say that. They say, I've never stopped listening to you guys. Hey, I played Magic this morning. You're like, really? It's, and yes, and then people are, contacting me and saying, hey, can I get any of your other albums on Spotify? And I'm like, fuck, I didn't even know any of them were on Spotify. Like, and it's, it's just, or Pandora or whatever, and it just goes on and on. But I think the opportunity for us to tour again, I mean, what's made a difference this time is we're fronting it all ourselves. We've just decided to take the bull by the horns and make it happen. And it's been really satisfying because knowing that there's this family, this deaf family of fanatic, I don't want to say fans, just like people that dig it, and then having the opportunity to have the special guests that we have, to have bands like Nunchucker Superfly, Bitchcraft, fucking Matt Dolan, his new solo band, Matt Mavis, the Mavises. It's these guys are actual, peers, but even more so friends from the last 20 years. We're all gigging together back then. So even though there's a really diverse, eclectic palette of music being offered on this tour with us and our very special guests, so we're all family. We've all just come from the same era, the same time, and we're just, thrashing it out on stage now. It's great.
Something that does separate you guys from your contemporaries of that era is the volume of releases out there that you guys had. That was the thing I really appreciated about you guys, I think the first time I really got into you guys was around Baptism. And and then I think I got Lightspeed Collision not long after that. And the thing is, they were released in the same year, if I'm not mistaken. But so the point is that you had heaps of copy. And the other thing too, if you don't mind me saying, I always felt you guys got better. You improved. And by the time you released, is it Ritual Eternal? Is that the name of you? No, sorry, Magic, the album Magic.
Magic was the last one. Yeah, Ritual Eternal was what we did when we lost our record deal with EMI, when it all kind of went pear-shaped in America, when our guitarist at the time went a bit nuts. And then we had that year where we recorded our own album, and that was Ritual Eternal. And we ended up getting an ARIA nomination for that, of all things.
I remember that.
Amazing.
I remember watching you guys on the
Magic
ARIAs.
got us back. Yeah, I know. I look back and I think, wow, we did a lot of really cool shit.
And
great times. I think back then you're sort of so caught up in it. It's your career. There's so much pressure, and you're not very experienced at life, so you're taking yourself really seriously, and you're just kind of caught up in it all, and you're not enjoying it as much as you could maybe be enjoying it. I mean, I loved being on stage, but everything that was going on off stage, I felt very lost and kind of unsettled in, and to look back and say, wow, we did all these extraordinary things, and you realise that, we had a really bloody good run, and the opportunity to do it all again. And as you say, Magic was a point where I think the music had really come into a place of it's of a powerful sense of purpose, and then that was consistent and could be continue to grow. And the band breaking up the way it did was a real shame. And for me personally, as a performer, I think the Magic album was where I finally got comfortable. That year of the Magic album and the performances of that year, I actually started to let myself enjoy my job.
Okay.
And prior to that, I'd been so hard on myself and was always tearing myself down. But the year of the Magic, like that 96, 97 was, I actually started to let myself enjoy being Fiona from Def FX, and then it ended. But at least it ended on a really high note,
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. There's not a bad episode with you guys musically speaking. You know what I'm saying? And that's really important for the fans because a lot of bands sort of get back together a couple of years after the fact with maybe one or two key members, and they write material for the times as opposed to Def FX material, if you know what I'm saying. But you guys never did that.
Yeah.
You've got this very
and you know what? We never will. We never will. Just kind of, that's the whole point of this coming tour, is not to reinvent the wheel, to celebrate the wheel and roll it.
No, good on you. Yeah, good on you. That's great. And hey, the other thing I watched, which was, you probably know that it's out there, but there's an interview between yourself and Britney Spears. I think it's from the year 99 or year 2000 or so.
Oh, yeah, that was when I was Russell Gilbert's music reporter, and they flew me to Japan, and I interviewed Britney, and she's a darling. That was fun. She was such a sweetheart. That was the Baby One More Time era. Pretty sure. Oh, no, it was Oops, I Did It Again. That was that album, that period of time for her.
Yeah. Was she, okay, so, yeah, I could see that was probably the first video I've ever seen of her where I was really she's so young. I really got that. Holy shit! Like the music industry has taken this young lady and is manipulating her and doing the things. I mean, she, with all due respect, I mean, her family aren't music industry people or entertainment industry people, so they don't know. And you can see how innocent she is through your conversation. Then, of course,
it's such a, you know, exactly what you're pointing out is so true. And that's what really struck me was what a sweet, gorgeous girl she was and was being she was being worked so hard. That day that I did that interview with her, she did at least 50 other interviews, including an enormous press conference. And then she had to dress up in a freaking kimono and perform for, you know, this audience of music execs and then come out in this super tight red PVC jumpsuit and perform the brand new single, Oops, I Did It Again. And then she was up again the next day because she and I got along really well and talked about going shopping in Shibuya, like to the markets. And she was like, and her manager was like, no, you can't. And you've got to be at this place at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. She was doing some bloody radio thing. I mean, you know, she was 18 or 19, you know?
Yeah.
And she was dating Justin Timberlake and she was just the sweetest girl. And then, you know, when I moved to Los Angeles and continued on with my career there and and my path crossed a couple of times over there. And by then she was going through, you know, some breakdowns and some, you know, and I wasn't surprised. It was like Michael Jackson, the pressure that he was under as a child star. It's exactly how Britney was pressured. And, you know, I think what's amazing about her as a human being now is that she's a really good mum now. You know, she's a consummate performer, a living legend and a survivor. And I think she deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah, agreed. And I think your interview in particular encapsulates a moment in time that few other interviewers were able to do. So congratulations for being able to do that.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. And you know what? She and I just had a really fun time. I gave her some presents and we compared off air. We were comparing pedicures. She'd just come from Hawaii and a massive tour, like press junket tour in Hawaii and straight to Japan, and you know, but she'd managed to get her toenails done with a pedicure in Hawaii, and it was when it was kind of new to do nail art and nail design, and she had these daisies painted on her toenails, and I think I had stars on my toenails, and I mean, you know, we're just girls just laughing. Such a sweetheart.
That's what I liked about it. But look, I better ask you a question about what you're doing here with The Art of Which. Okay, so look, I remember.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, is that okay? I mean, I'm not. To be honest, I wasn't sure whether we were talking about one or the other or both. So I thought.
Well, we're meant to just talk about Deaf Effects, but we can do a quick mention of.
Oh, that's fine.
If you like, sure.
Well, look.
Because doing the spoken word tour was how I've been able to schlep my ass from literally the other side of the world. I mean, I'm fronting all of this myself. So coming over to do the spoken word tour in support of a new book and new Oracle card deck that my publishers are releasing. And also, I'm going to be in Australia. I've asked for a month unpaid off my job. My boss at Island Birds, the airline where I work full time, is giving me a month unpaid off so that I can come to Australia and do shows with my band and do some spoken word events. And you know, the thing about Art of Witch, it is a book that I've written. It's a manifesto about witchcraft. It's everything I've come to learn at this point of being physically present on the planet for 53 years and realising you don't have to grow older. You can grow better at living. And my witchcraft provides a spiritual foundation and framework to explore that. And that's what the Art of Witch events are about. So I'm really hoping that people, when they come, will, you know, find what I'm sharing with them useful, and I want to, you know, offer people the tools that I have found useful to live, to create a life that really is, you know, a life that in many ways I would have once only dreamt of and thought, could that even be possible, especially being a professional pilot, easily the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I did it, and I'm doing it, and I realise as I'm growing, not older, but better at living, that and defying what is culturally and socially considered achievable or appropriate, even for especially for females. We're you know encouraged to think we have a use by date, you know, and I'm like, fuck that. It's like, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to live like there's a mandate to grow old, get sick, and die expensively. Fuck that. You don't have to do it. So my life is, is a journey of exploring that concept, and the art of which spoken word events share that concept with people. I'll also be answering any questions and signing everything and anything, babies' butts, cheeks, whatever. Bring it on. I'll do photos with everyone. I'll stay all night if I have to. But it's just a really great, beautiful way to connect with people that have been on the magical journey with me as well as the musical journey.
Yes, yeah. Well, well put, and that answers that question, about that. And the other thing that I've always seen in you, and I've read a lot of your interviews from the late 90s, because as I say, I was an old Def FX fan, so I used to seek out your interviews, because occasionally you were in the Saturday and Sunday broadsheets being interviewed by regular media types.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about you, is you crossed over and you weren't afraid to have an opinion. That. And I always saw you as somebody who's, whether it was your job or not, it's another matter, but you did break down barriers and misconceptions around witchcraft.
It's interesting because it never was. It's a really good point that you raise. It never was a job, but it became my job, and that was an interesting flip. It was, a spiritual foundation that was growing and forming itself in my life through Def FX. My song lyrics reflected that a lot, but it was tenuous and something I kept kind of private. And then Def FX ends, and all of a sudden I've become this author witch, and then it becomes even more. I'm now the witch, and especially when I moved to America, it became my job, and it was a strange worlds to bridge. Something that was so private and again spiritual, and all of a sudden it's my career. But I think there's a really lovely balance with it now. I didn't expect to have the opportunity to write books about the craft or my spiritual life again, and kind of knocked on the back door whilst I was forging a career as a professional pilot. And as it turns out now, I'm doing both simultaneously, and I'm finding they complement each other. And I will never get sick of saying that a plane is more comfortable than a broomstick.
You're still flying.
I'm still flying, and even when the planes I fly aren't air conditioned, and I'm bloody dealing with passengers and customs and bureaucracy and red tape and frickin' rules and regulations. At the same time, the free life of a witch, as I've come to live it and know it, which is to free to try to be the best version of me that I can be, and share and be useful in the world. That does marry itself professionally with my job as a pilot, and I just feel at this point in my life, it's I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to rock out with people as well as connect on a spiritual level with people, and really that's what my month off work unpaid is going to be for me.
Well, look, these things are always over far too quickly. I better let you get to the next one, as I think Chris has got one lined up.
Yeah, I think they've been starting to call me. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but look, you're an Australian music icon as far as I'm concerned, and I love the way you stand within your own truth and you speak your truth, and please keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate your very generous and lovely words. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. No worries at all. Have a great night.
I hope I see you at I hope you can come to a show.
I'll go to the Woolly Mammoth in Brisbane. I'm going to go to that one.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Make sure you come and get me and say hi. I'd love to meet you properly.
Definitely. That's really cool. Thank you so much, eh? Okay.
Awesome. All right, Andrew. Take care.
See you then.
Bye.
Catch ya. You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that interview subject was Fiona Horne from the Sydney outfit Def FX. Thank you so much for listening.